Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Triathlete Podcast, where we bring to you the stories of personal fitness from people around the world. Today, I have a very exciting guest on the show, Stephen Pyke. Stephen and I met recently at a networking event, and I found out that he has a really interesting triathlon story to share with us. So I thought it would be great to have him on the show and share with you all what he's been through. Stephen, would you like to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Rom. Yeah, nice to be on the podcast and nice to be talking about one of what I would consider my big personal challenges. So, just happy to share any insights I have, and if even one person finds this valuable, I will be a happy guy.
Awesome. So one of the things that Stephen mentioned to me when I was asking about the podcast was that he has a lot of interesting nuggets to share with people and would love to share them with everybody today. So Steve, the floor is yours today. Feel free to share whatever you can with folks who, might benefit from hearing it. So why don't we start by getting right in? What's your background and what's your interesting triathlon story?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd say my background is like I'm typically more fit than people think I am, but I'm by no means athletic and in good physical shape, seemingly. So that context is like I've grew up playing soccer. I been a cyclist for a long time, but then I always had sort of this like idea that's like, am I capable of that? Am I capable of doing a triathlon? And what would it actually take? So I finally got around to signing up for one. This year, I had actually signed up for a couple, like one in the pandemic year, then after that, and those got canceled. So this was like the first year I actually was able to, actually train and do one.
That's fantastic. And Steve's being really modest here in terms of how people think he's not that fit. So we'll hear a bit more about that later. But yeah, cool. Which was the event that you signed up for and what motivated
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, so I signed up for a half Ironman, and it was one that was held in Sweet Home, Oregon, which is like in the middle of I don't know, middle of the state. And then one of the things I was able to do that with one of my college buddies who lives outside Portland. So it was good to kind of have I don't know, an accountability partner, or at least someone to like check in and make sure that I'm doing the things that I said I'd be doing. So we have, a fun race. So that was fun to do it with someone else too.
Got it. And were you like actively doing marathons or cycling things before that, or?
I mean, cycling has been a thing for me. Like I've done the Seattle to Portland ride and Seattle to Vancouver. So at least just that leg, if I feel comfortable doing that. But no, nothing else. I never ran a half marathon before I started training. I never swam more than like 5 lengths of the pool. I tried like a couple years ago when I was getting ready for the one that got canceled, and literally like a lap in, I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to complete this. I'm huffing and puffing and like just struggling to get to the end of the pool.
Oh man, I actually registered for the Seattle to Vancouver Facebook group in hopes that I might be able to train for it next year.
Yeah,
I'll have to see how it all goes because I've signed up for an Olympic in August, Olympic try in August. So
yeah,
I don't
cool.
know how my body's going to respond, but yeah, I'll probably look to you for some tips.
Yeah,
So
it's a
wow,
fun
so
ride.
so yeah, how much in advance of your event did you actually sign up?
So this all came about because I was down in Portland visiting my friend in May. He was like, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and I basically invited myself and said, "Hey, I'm going to do this with you as well." So in May, like mid-May, I basically like mentally committed, but I didn't actually start training till like first, second week of June, and the triathlon was September 9th. So that sounds like a short period of time, but one of the things I learned, and this is probably just my own, personal thing, is I can't give myself too much time. So like this forced me to basically come up with a good plan and be like, well, if I don't execute on this every single day, I'm not going to meet it. Like I'm just going to fail. So that at least for me was helpful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, funny that you mentioned September 9th because that was actually the day I did my first triathlon
Oh,
sprint.
right.
So it just happens to be that we were killing ourselves in different parts of the country, but
Yep.
that's a funny coincidence.
Good to know
Um,
someone else was in pain elsewhere.
oh yeah, man. And in fact, my timeline was very similar to yours. I signed up for mine in like the middle of June, So I guess a little later, and I was only doing a sprint, so it didn't require as much training. And I started training like last week of June. So yeah, fairly
Yeah,
similar
the
story.
timelines.
Yeah. So let's start with what was the most challenging aspect of how did you do a training plan? Firstly.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's the best recommendation. One of my buddies, he has done sort of like longer, like ultra marathons and stuff, and his advice was, well, whatever you can do in a week, you can do in a day. I said, okay, that's interesting. So I mentally planned out like as long as through the week I could literally do a half Ironman as like the week's worth of training, I'd be fine.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that's probably not the best recommendation, everyone, for everyone. I know there's lots of plans, but my thing was like as long as I'm doing something every day, and I basically tried to balance like at least 3 swims, most of the weeks 4 swims because that was like the hardest part for me, and then a little bit of a balance on bike and run, and not pushing myself too hard on those because biking I felt comfortable with, but the long run was also a concern.
Yeah. And what distance did you do again?
Half Ironman, so
You did the
the
half.
70.3. So
Oh, wow.
1.2 swim, 56-mile bike, and then a half marathon.
That's incredible, man. Man, you
Which
say it so
saying this out,
nonchalantly.
saying this out loud right now, I go, oh yeah, that's actually a pretty good accomplishment.
I mean, you're half an Iron Man. You're like half a superhero, man. So that
Yeah,
counts for
well,
something.
yeah,
Got it. So let's start with swim. You said that was the
yeah,
toughest part for you. How did you plan to train for it? And did you ever felt like
yeah.
giving up? Yeah.
Yeah, on the swim. I'll get to the point of giving up in a second. But the swimming piece, I just committed to like going to, an athletic club that had a pool, literally signed up for membership specifically for the pool, made sure that I could reserve specific lanes at specific, times of the week so I could swim, and then literally just went and forced myself to go. And not knowing much about, the right mechanics for swimming, I watched a ton of YouTube videos.
Yeah.
There's probably a 3 to 4 week history in for me on YouTube, which is just like all of these swimming videos. I can't remember the actual like channel right now, but there's basically a guy in Australia that gives a
Yeah.
bunch of great
Effortless
tips.
swimming. Effortless
Yeah,
swimming.
that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Perez, I guess is no, I can't remember. I actually found this guy really helpful.
Oh
Terrence,
yeah.
triathlon Terrence. Sorry, triathlon Terrence. He's this
He's the guy in
Canadian.
Vancouver or something, right?
Yeah, he's in
Yeah.
Canada. So I've
Yeah.
been watching a ton of his videos
Okay,
too.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
so
those were that was definitely helpful. I mean,
yeah,
just to like, and again, it's hard to get like sort of the mental understanding of the mechanics and then the actual understanding of like how your body works to make that feel like you're swimming
yeah,
at a better rate. I'd say this is part because I'm sort of a data person, but I literally tracked every every single swim. I've got a spreadsheet at home that's basically like, my distance, how much time I swam, and then even in like the, Apple Watch or whatever, it's got a different metric for like how efficient you are. I don't know, again, I don't know how accurate that is, but just being able to track that and see a little bit of progress was like life-giving because
yeah.
when you're swimming and feeling like you're not moving quickly at all, to at least go back and be like, okay, well, at least I was like 10 seconds faster on average per lap. It didn't feel like it, but I guess it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so that brings me to my next question, which is what kind of gear did you use?
Specifically for swimming or for
Yeah,
anything?
yeah. I mean, for everything, but swimming to start with, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, swimming, I just had basic, cheapest swim
yeah,
shorts you could buy.
yeah.
Uh, One thing I will say, and my biggest mistake was using that uh, pole buoy.
Oh yeah, the
There's
pool
like a
boot.
little
Yeah,
buoy that goes between your legs.
yeah.
Well, that's good to I guess get the sensation of swimming smoothly.
Yeah.
It's not good for legitimate training.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was essentially like over optimizing for like, oh, I swam like 1,400 yards today. But in reality, I probably only swam like 900. So this goes to the, I would say, biggest point of failure is I did an Olympic triathlon in the beginning of August to make sure that I could do this and not freak out before
Hmm.
the bigger event, that was one of the smarter decisions I made. But in that event, I mean, exact thing that they say that happens, is like you get like a couple 100 yards in and you just panic. Not
Yeah.
because there was like a bunch of people around, but just because I was like, oh man, I'm doing this and I'm not doing it well, and then I just freak. So this is not great advice, but I did have a swim coach for one lesson, and she basically was like, "Well, you can always swim backstroke if everything fails." And so in that moment, I was like, "Screw it! I'm just gonna finish this thing. If I can turn around on my back and swim for the rest of the thing if needed, I'll at least complete it, and then I'll be fine." And yeah, so I did that, and and I've never felt so much like a lost duck on water. Like I'm sure I wasn't going straight. I know I was tacking like completely off course, or whatever, but I did it, and so like that felt good in the sense it's like okay, I got through that. That was literally the worst thing. I know it was embarrassing. Like if you looked at me and saw what was happening, you'd be like this guy's a total joke. But I at least got through it and it was fine. So uh, if needed, use the backstroke.
Interesting. Wow. So I actually went in with the backstroke being the plan. So
Okay.
yeah. So because I didn't even know how to swim myself, I was like, look, I know
Oh,
I'm going to
all
get
right.
tired. So when I get tired, I have my
Smart.
backstroke as my safety. Because I guess for me, uh, calling out for help was like, yeah, I don't want to go. I was really hoping that I don't have to do that.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
so when I was sort of really tired, I decided to go on my back, and I mean I was amongst the slowest in the pack, and
Yeah. Me
there were
too.
people
Yeah.
around me who were really struggling, and they did have to ask for help. So seeing them get help, I was like, okay, do I need help? Am I doing the right thing or not? And luckily,
Yeah.
the kayaks came and asked me if I needed help a couple of times, and I was able to sort of push through it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting. Did you train in open water? Yeah.
Yeah. So that was another thing I was going to say is I maybe did like 3 swims in open water beforehand. And I was very nervous about that actually. Like I got to the point in the pool where I was like, okay, I can at least go half the distance or whatever. And so I'm like, all right, well now I need to try someplace that's more open water. For me, that was totally disorienting. Like I wasn't prepared for like just how different it was. You're in a pool, obviously the water's clear. You have a straight line on the bottom of the pool to help guide you. And for me, being out in the open water, at least where I was swimming, which they had great buoys set up. There's a park in Redmond, Idlewood Park, you probably know it. Um, but man, getting out there and actually doing that was I'm glad I at least did it before the Olympic. But that's something that I basically did at least 2 times a week after that because I was like, this is way more realistic than a pool. And number one, you get a feel better feel for the wetsuit, which helps you out, so that's great. And then just understanding like how to keep focused and your head down in the water and not freak out. And you know, when you do breathe, make sure that you're spotting and can keep yourself on track. Like those things were just foreign from being in a pool. So yeah,
Yeah.
highly, highly recommend doing
Yeah.
that.
Interesting. You mentioned Idlewood Park. Yeah, I trained there quite a bit as well. So I think that's probably where you and I crossed paths because
Maybe, who
you were
knows?
mentioning Green Lake a couple of times. So I used to
Yeah.
do Idlewood like 8 in the mornings on Sunday. I don't know if that's the time you were
Okay.
there, but yeah. So
Yeah, I think mainly I went on Saturdays, but it is the
okay,
spot. It's the hot
yeah,
spot,
yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful
Yeah,
place
it's
in
cool.
Seattle. If anybody's here in Seattle, Idlewood Park's awesome. Cool. So let's get into the bike. I guess the biking you said is was a safe space for you, right? So
Yeah. I mean,
um,
I wasn't, yeah, I felt fine on that. The one thing I will say that I had to learn was just calorie management. Like
hmm,
that was a whole nother thing was once I felt comfortable that I could like legitimately do the distance or each distance, it was okay, well, how do I make sure I'm comfortable? I can complete the distance. I have energy left over. And that all was like this idea of calorie consumption when you're on the bike. And that was like a little bit foreign. So getting that down was essential. There was, people recommended like the scratch uh, mix that's like a high calorie mix that goes in your water bottles, and then just making sure that like, I mean, I consume a lot of water, so it's the fact that I bought actually extra sized water bottles to make sure that I had enough volume on the bike where it like wouldn't be concerned, a concern after 3 hours. So that was all. I felt like that was a good decision too.
Interesting. Yeah. So, did you end up having to upgrade your bike or something to get
No,
ready? Or you were fine? Yeah. Yeah.
no. I mean, I've been cycling for a while, so
Okay.
I have a nice enough road bike. Nothing that is, of the it's not a tri bike. It's not like this amazing thing, but hey, it's light, smooth, goes fast. It's fine.
Yep. Got it. Cool. So that's the bike. And how about the run? Like you said, you hadn't done any half marathons or anything before this, so this was your first half marathon, basically.
I mean, I ran some in training, but
Okay.
officially, like
Yeah.
I haven't signed up for an event or anything. But in
Yeah.
training, and that was one thing I've been basically exercising pretty much every day for a year. Quick backtrack. I mean, I in the pandemic, I feel like a lot of people, I put on a decent amount of weight. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, I got to get this down. So I'd been running and biking pretty much multiple times a week for a year. So I felt relatively comfortable, but I never did longer distances.
Mm-hmm.
So then I finally got out and was like, okay, I did just like a 10-mile run and like a half marathon on the weekends. Like once a month kind of thing to just make sure that I can do that distance and pace myself appropriately. Um, so yeah, that eventually became like, oh, I feel comfortable doing that. Like that's, and all of this, just so you know, it's like a shock to me. It's like, oh, that distance is now comfortable when it used to
Yeah.
be something I feared. So that was, I don't know, good
Yeah.
learning. Nice to,
Yeah.
see that, but it's by no means that like, oh, this is easy now.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and I relate to that because I did my first full marathon last year, and before doing that, I used to really struggle to do my half marathons. But then, in the course of training for the full, 13 miles came somewhere halfway through the training program, and then I had to do like 14 and 15 and 16, and I mean, I kind of struggled to get beyond 17, 18 in training, but 13 became like, okay, yeah, 13, 14,
Yeah,
15. Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Just wake up and go do it now.
way
I
to
lost
go,
that
man.
training now, of course, but yeah, I think the mind kind of just adjusts to
Yeah,
it after a while. So that was pretty
yeah.
cool. Cool. So, well, I mean, is this a one and done for you? Are
You
you gonna
know,
go the full? Yeah,
I don't think I'll go the full. That seems crazy,
yeah.
but I'll definitely keep doing them. That's
Mm-hmm.
the all my buddies who have either gone through this before or, you know, done longer distance marathons and ultra marathons, whatever. They're like, you're gonna get hooked. And I'm like, no way. Like, whatever. But the reality is I think the answer is yes, because I look back and I go, okay, well, I did it and it was fine and I met my time goal. But then I also was like, well, shoot, I didn't push myself that hard on the bike. If I only had 3 months of swim training, how much faster could I go in that thing? And then, so you just, and I think
Yep.
it's a personality thing, but you start to see all these little areas of improvement. And, then I think, well, geez, if I've got a year to prep for this stuff, what could happen. So
Yeah.
realistically, yeah, I feel like I've got some bug, you
You
know?
got some. Yeah. You've been bit by the bug. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So you mentioned you and your friend. How was your friend's experience? Were you guys like comparing notes every week or something? Or
We were just texting each other
yeah,
every once in a
yeah,
while. It was great. We were college buddies, so there wasn't like a fierce competition, but at least from my perspective, he's always been the, more physically fit, gifted specimen. So the
yeah.
fact that like I could even be in the same realm of stuff that he was doing was super encouraging.
Cool.
And then we finished, I think maybe I told you this before, but we just finished like a couple minutes apart. It was great. Like
Yeah.
literally like in order, like he finished and then I finished at the end. So that was super fun.
Nice.
But yeah,
Nice.
he gave me the tips for the scratch long, calorie thing. And then I don't think I passed along any interesting information his way.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I guess once you find somebody who's more experienced, it's just easier to get information from them. and
Yeah,
just learn from
totally.
their experience. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Well, I
Cool.
think the
So
thing I
yeah,
appreciated about this conversation, or at least opportunity to chat, is like, you don't need an expert to help you. You just
yeah,
need a person who's one or two steps ahead of you.
yeah,
And
that's true.
like that feels like a super valuable learning. Like, you don't need a crazy coach or whatever to go tell you all like the most important things. You just need to know someone who's done it before. Like, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, nobody's here to win the Olympics, right? I mean, we're just here to,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
not even close.
I mean, we're just here to, do something that makes us feel good. And yeah, just a few tips that help us improve our own performance is what kind of keeps us going. So I guess my next question is, the podcast is called Triathlete, which is basically to motivate people to keep trying. And so how did you keep going, through it all? And were there times when you're like, man, what did I sign up for? I had one beer too many. Screw the shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, luckily one of those things is I don't drink anymore, so that
Oh, yeah.
option's out. Um, so uh, yeah, I mean, this is one thing. Like, there's a bunch of context behind this, but I just wanted to commit to something and basically
hmm
prove that whatever I commit to, I'm going to deliver on. So
hmm
for me, it was just I said I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it. Yeah.
So with that said, there wasn't too many moments where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to give up," or like I just needed to prove a point to
hmm
myself,
hmm
uh, you know, and a few other people. But
Yeah.
so that for me was helpful and just like a good learning that like if you just stick to something and you be consistent and you take little steps and you just for me again visually see progress like I swam 50 more yards today, like that is enough and the consistency will get you there. And that was like a powerful learning. It was like
Yeah.
as long as I do these things every day or every other day, like it's going to pay off. And so
hmm
that was super helpful.
Got it. Got it. Cool. So you said you might end up signing up for something next year, and you're still actively working. I mean, you're staying
Yeah.
fit even now. It's not a, you're not enjoying the party or the downtime right now.
No, still managing to swim 3 times a week,
Yeah.
running and biking in some shape every other day. It's
Nice.
easy. I have a treadmill at home.
Oh, that's good.
I have a Peloton bike at home. I can't
Yeah.
complain. It's so easy. So it's like it's so easy. I can't say no or find an excuse.
Yeah.
The things I have done are like cut out the big long bike rides because well, it's not super nice outside and I
Yeah.
don't really need to. But
Yeah. So does the intensity of the training impact like family and social life a bit?
well, yeah. I mean, the so this is a good distinction between my journey, which is like, I'm married and we just have pets. So in
hmm
terms of free time, I have a decent amount of it. So I'm not
Yeah.
interrupting too many things. My buddy, married, 2 kids, job. Like, I mean, I also have a job, but flexible enough where it doesn't matter. So he's definitely impacted more than I, and he clearly had to work out some agreement with his wife on like what, worked well and, carving out time. But for me, it was much simpler. It's like, okay, I'll just
Gotcha.
do it.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, yeah, same here. Me and my wife, no kids yet, no pets either. So we managed to get the time we need to do what we want. But it's still I still do find that sometimes like when I was training for the marathon, I used to be like so tired after my long runs that I'd lose the weekend day and then I'd lose the night
Yeah,
before because I want to be rested for the
yeah.
training the next day, and so kind of ate into personal time quite a bit. But anyway, so cool. So, I mean, what advice do you have for folks who aspire to be in the steps? I mean, you're 2 steps ahead of many people out there. So, what's your advice
I,
to the people
I
trying?
don't know, just do it. Just try it. Like
Yeah,
there's, yeah, just push yourself. Like
just do it. Yeah,
I've always had this question, and you probably have it as well. It's like, what am I capable of? And I find it exciting to challenge myself and try and do something. And it's like if you have that idea, just do it. And because number one, you're never gonna know until you do it anyways. So why mess around? Just commit to it. And then like along the way, there's always gonna be these little things that you fear. Like I don't know if it's the same for you, but it was like, man, that first open water swim was like okay, am I gonna be able to do this? Can I even get into the wet? Like, can I even wear the get the wetsuit on and not look like an
Yeah.
idiot? You know, and just doing those things and sort of popping the bubble on the fear, that made it so much easier because it's like you build it up way worse than it actually is. And it's like once I took that step, or once you keep kind of taking those steps, it just becomes easier and easier and easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Great words, Ben. So I think I love the way you phrase it, which is about you always had the question of what am I really capable of, and I think that's a great way to phrase what I'm kind of pursuing as well, and many people out there I'm sure are too. So I think that's a great note on which we can probably end the conversation and leave people to think something about. Um, so cool. Well, thanks a ton, Steve. I think thanks for the time. It's been great chatting with you, and hope to see you on the circuit sometime. Cross
Yeah,
paths and maybe
yeah,
do an event together. Yeah.
yeah. Likewise, that'd be a lot of fun, and we can cross paths at Idlewood Park too. You never know.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. Take care.
All
Have a good
right, take
weekend.
care.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye. All right. I think we're